afternoon and welcome. I think we'll get started today. Welcome to those of you who braved the cold and came out in person, and also welcome to those of you who are watching online. My report is that we already have 50 people who are joining us online today. So think about the warmth of the group in terms of being a lot larger number than are sitting in the chairs. I just have one announcement for you today, and that announcement is about the FY19 audit process. We are in the last stages of the collection of data around that, and also some preliminary audit findings are coming in. So if you receive one of those, we'll reach out to you and work on the responses together as you choose to do that with us. But please know that we've got a pretty quick turnaround time on those, so as we reach out, a prompt collaboration would be very good. Thank you also for the prompt responses that we've got in terms of questions. As we move through the audit process, it really makes it much smoother to work with our external auditors, that you all really are responsive in the way that you turn around those comments to us. My next pleasure is to be able to introduce Brent Rasmus as we continue to work through the new leadership group in the CFO office. Brent and I agreed that it would be good for you to see more of him, so Brent is going to facilitate the rest of today's meeting.
Thank you, Gloria, and hello everybody. It's been a long time since I've actually been to a Chicago BMG meeting, so I'm really excited to be here. My title is Controller for the University of Illinois. The units that report to me are University Accounting and Financial Reporting, or UAFR, University Payables, and University Payroll and Benefits, or UPB. A little bit about myself. I've been with the University of Illinois for about 18 years, and the whole time I've essentially worked in the system offices with UAFR. I'm sure I've worked with a number of you. If I haven't met any of you, please stop by afterwards and introduce yourself to me, because I'm looking at faces and I can already tell that I do not know everybody, at least by face. So if you have a few minutes after this, I would really like to meet you. So yeah, so Gloria asked me if I could lead the BMG, and I said, sure. I've never done it before, but I will certainly give it a shot. With that, I think looks like a pretty good agenda, and I see a lot of my units on the agenda, so I can tell this is going to be a really good meeting. So with that, Bernadette, I'm going to try here. So so Dana is first giving us a update on policy and procedure. Okay, I'm sorry. You gave me instructions and I already forgot. I failed on what my first to do here. Gosh, yes. Thank you. Okay, I will try to remember that for next time. Okay, let me see if I can do this myself here. Yes. Okay.
Hi everyone. My name is Dana Libro, and I'm filling in for Scott Zalatoris today. Okay, today we wanted to talk about some updates to the policy manual, some upcoming policy changes, policies that are under review, and questions and resources. This is a slide I think Scott shows every month. Just shows you where you can receive updates to the policy and procedures manual, updates by fiscal year and a month. So far there have been 12 updates this year. Please sign up for the Business and Finance News Service, and as Scott always says, download new forms. If you take nothing else from this meeting, download new forms every time. Okay, let's talk about some upcoming policy changes. The first one is the employee relocation assistance. We've talked about this at past meetings. Hopefully you've seen it through open comment periods and other places. The policy, as it's moving forward, offers two types of reimbursement for relocation. It's either a one-time moving payment to employee or a reimbursement for expenses incurred. And with that is the option to process direct payments to moving vendors. It's an either or, and they need to be documented in the signed offer letter. This change is going to be effective January 1st. You'll see a lot of communication coming out over the next month and a half, but please look for it and let us know if you have any questions. Policies under review. The policy that we're looking at right now is business meals, refreshments, and alcohol. And it's going to be a pretty significant change than from where we are right now. And I wanted to go through some of the highlights. This is going out for open comment either this afternoon or tomorrow. So please read it thoroughly and comment. If you see someone that has a comment similar to your own thoughts, please comment anyway. We like to see everyone's thoughts. Just to give you some basics, we are basing the allowability of expenditures on bona fide business purposes. That means the expense must be reasonable and necessary to accomplish the mission of the university. We're replacing the meal-specific spending limits with a single amount. No more employee, guest, student. It's just employee or not employee, and it's $1 amount. So that's a pretty significant change from where we are right now. $75 per meal. Okay? We've also reduced the administrative burden relating to the supporting documentation. To submit these expenses, you'll need to document the business purpose of the meeting, the number of attendees, whether they were employees or not employees, whether alcohol was served, and an itemized receipt. And also, we've combined the two business meals subsections. There was a section for business meals and a section for alcohol. We've combined them into one policy. Again, the open comment period will be going out either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Okay, another policy that is under review is Section 13, accounting. This really is not a new policy. It's really just a reorganization of the policy. We redesigned the content to focus on key accounting principles by clearly documenting expectations. And the several pages in Section 13 and 22 will be decommissioned. This went out for open comment. You should have received the email this morning, so please take a look and comment as needed. Are there any questions? Okay. And if you do have any, please reach out either to myself or Scott. Scott's email and phone number are listed there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. So I just wanted to say that the open comment period, I can't stress how important this is. So we look at every single comment that's provided. And open comment period also doesn't mean if, that you disagree with it. I mean, we also want to know if you actually like the changes, but we do take all the feedback seriously. So definitely provide your comments, and lots of work going on right now with the policies. Okay, so next we have John LaRoe, who's going to give us an overview of NACUBO functions and how those intersect with program codes.
Hi there, everyone. I'm John LaRoe with University Accounting, and before I jump into this, I just want to second what Dana and Brent were just referring to as well. I know I personally worked very closely with Scott on that redesign of Section 13, and we're really excited about how that's going to look. We think it's going to be a lot more user-friendly experience for you, a lot more logical flow from beginning to end. So we're really excited to get that out, so we appreciate your feedback and looking forward to hearing what you have to say on that. But anyway, shifting gears now, let's jump into the next presentation. We're going to be talking today about NACUBO functions and really how that plays into your program codes, which is the P of your CFOP. So as we're going through today's presentation, just keep that program code segment of your CFOPs in mind. So here's a quick agenda. First, we're going to define what NACUBO functions are and why they're so important. Give you an overview of some of the more commonly used NACUBO functions. Explain how they're assigned within Banner and where you can go to find those. and then kind of show some additional resources that you can use once you're back at your desk. So first off, what are NACUBO functions? It's a strange term, I know, but NACUBO stands for the National Association of College and University Business Officers, and they set a lot of the standards that universities like ourselves really need to follow for a lot of financial reporting issues. So it's a very important organization, and they set a lot of guidelines that we really do need to follow. And one of the things that they established were these function codes, as they call them, which really helps create this standard reporting structure that we can report our expenditure activity within. So really, what do they classify? The NACUBO functions actually classify our expenditures and say, why did we incur the expense? It didn't really say what we purchased, like an account code maybe would. So for example, an account code may say, okay, I bought office supplies. We paid for some travel reimbursements. But the NACUBO function on the program code says, why did you incur those office supply expenses? Why did you send the employee on this business trip? Was it for research? Was it for some kind of public service activity you were doing? So that's really where the NACUBO function comes in and why it's so important. It tells the reader of our financial statements, why did you incur those expenses and how did that fit in with the university's mission? So once again, I got ahead of myself a little bit here, but this slide goes into more detail for you once you get back to your desk. But once again, we have various readers of our financial statements. We have potential donors, we have auditors, we have granting agencies, creditors for bond agencies and so forth. All read our financial statements for various different reasons. And they want to see our expenditure activity and where we spent our money. You know, did we spend a lot of it on research? Did we spend it on student financial support? Those sorts of things. So given how important that is to the readers of our financial statements, it really is important when we're coding our transactions to not only think about the account code, you know, that we talked about when I was here last month, but also the program code and making sure the right NACUBO function is assigned to that program code that you're assigning your expense to. We'll get into this in a little bit more here in a little bit, but some NACUBO functions, such as academic support or institutional support, may not be viewed as favorably as some because they seem a little more like the quote-unquote red tape that some people may talk about, or administrative bloat that you may see in the newspapers. That's not really accurate, and we'll get into that more here in a little bit when we get to the examples of what NACUBO defines. But it's just an example, though, of how some of the NACUBO functions are viewed, whether that's fair or not, how they're viewed versus others. So it's just another reason to be really careful and not just, you know, blindly code everything to 1300 academic support. To really take that extra effort and make sure we have the right coding on our program codes. And kind of finally, as far as why they're important, these NACUBO functions help create uniformity and consistency in our financial reporting. So not only for ourselves, but also when comparing to other institutions. So for example, we can say, how much did the University of Illinois at Chicago spend on research this year versus 10 years ago? Or, you know, how much did we spend in research versus our peer institutions in the current year? You know, there's a lot of comparability that we can do with these NACUBO function spending categories, and that really, once again, is another reason why they are so important. And I won't go through all these in detail, but these are just some more examples of some of the actual required reports that we have to issue that really do rely heavily on proper NACUBO function. You know, the audited external financial statements and a lot of IBHE reports we do and so forth. So it really is an integral part of what we do from a financial reporting perspective. So let's get in more to some of the common definitions. What the NACUBO organization has done is they've defined a lot of these NACUBO functions that we have to report our financial activity within. And they've tried to create these broad definitions of, okay, here's the different function codes, and here's the types of expenses that we would expect to see within those function codes. It's a little tricky, though, because a lot of times their definitions are vague and open to interpretation and a little bit gray. So we have to do our best to use our professional judgment to figure out which types of expenses fit best where. And then once we've kind of made that decision, to really apply that consistently throughout the entire University of Illinois system. So to ensure, you know, Unit A is not reporting a certain type of expense differently than Unit B is, we need to make sure everyone is reporting, you know, these certain types of expenses in the same manner as far as the NACUBO functions go. That way we have consistency across our financial statements. So with all that being said, let's maybe talk about some of the more common NACUBO functions out there that we do see. The first one is instruction, the 1,000 NACUBO function. And a lot of the expenses that we would expect to fall within this function code are the instructional expenses for, our instructional mission of the university. So expenses for credit and non-credit courses, I won't read them all here, but lectureships, if you have a lecturer coming in to communicate educational content and give a speech to the audience. Conferences, seminars, and workshops, and things of that nature. So once again, it's tied directly to our mission, and if it really is instructional activity and we code it well, that really is going to make us look a lot better from the reporting side. And honestly, a lot of our national rankings out there, the U.S. News and World Report, the magazines that rank universities, I failed to mention this earlier, they actually use a lot of these NACUBO function spending for their rankings as well. And if they see that we're spending a lot of money in our core areas, such as instruction, research, and so forth, that really does help improve the university's ranking nationwide. So once again, that's another important reason, if you have instructional expenses, make sure we're coding them to the correct instruction function code. TA salaries on your state funds, professor salaries for their instructional activities, those sorts of things. Another common one, an obvious one, is research. Expenses that are specifically organized to produce research activities that are separately budgeted for. So this would be your research centers, any money that you set aside for your faculty members for their research projects, any research assistants, wages for the research assistants that are assisting your faculty members, those sorts of things. Public service is another one. Public service is another one of our core missions at the university. So that would be things like the extension offices, any kind of community service efforts that you do, any kind of public broadcasting, like if you have a not-for-profit public broadcasting for TV or radio at your university, those sorts of things. Next one is academic support, which sometimes can be overly used and overly abused. But really what this should be for is kind of the administrative support services that surround our core missions. So, if you have a business office and some of the administrative functions that go behind some of the core instructional activities or research activities within your unit, those probably would be coded more to 1300. Also things, and once again, a lot of these examples are straight from the NACUBO Financial Accounting Manual. So this is kind of what they've defined that falls in these areas as well. Academic administration, once again, like the deans and the department heads. If you have faculty members going to conferences for personal, professional development, we actually sent out a Friday fact. I don't know if anyone here signs up for the Friday facts or not, but we sent out a Friday fact just this past Friday talking about a lot of the faculty activities and which faculty activities would fall with under 1300, like the faculty development versus other areas like research for their research activities. And also, too, if we're developing courses and curriculums for our faculty members, some of that activity and expenses to develop those courses would also fall under 1300 academic support. Student services is a pretty straightforward one. It kind of is for exactly what it sounds like. It's for a lot of the well-being and the kind of the soft skills to help produce a better environment here for our students. The Student Counseling Center, career guidance, helping them with resumes, social and cultural developmental activities, and things of that nature. So if you're doing things within your unit to help improve the well-being and student experience for your students, and it's not really instruction related necessarily, a lot of that would really fall more under the student services. But this would not include things like scholarships and financial aid. That'll fall in a later NACUBO that we'll get to. Other than student loans would fall in here. But you can see some good examples here of what would fall under 1400. Institutional support is similar to academic support that we talked about earlier, but this is really more for support that's really university-wide. So things like the president's office, the chancellor's office, the offices at the kind of the central high level that deal with a lot of the behind-the-scenes operations, fiscal operations, some of the investments, system-level accounting like our office does. And then finally, we have the kind of the financial aid, scholarships, fellowships, prizes, and awards to students fall in this 1700 range. And just things to keep in mind. I think everyone is aware of what scholarships and fellowships and so forth are. But just a reminder, the students would not perform any kind of services in exchange for these types of financial aid and, would not be required to pay any of these amounts back. So if your activity falls within these classic financial aid types of activities, it would fall under this 1700 realm. And it's just also lists to, some of the tax reporting implications behind those different types of student payments. So now that we kind of have a rough feel of what the different NACUBO functions are, how do you go and find those in Banner? If you want to go back to your office and review all your program codes to see, do I have the right NACUBO functions established to those? How would I find that? So Banner actually has a hierarchy feature that shows the NACUBO functions that we have assigned. There's a couple different ways to get there. I have two Banner forms listed here, FZM PROG, which is short for program, and then FTI PRGH. I'll show you examples here on the next couple screens. So I apologize, I know this is a little small, but you may be able to see this once you get back to your office better. But this just gives some examples from those Banner screens. So this is the example from FZM program form. And it's got the program title, which says Webmasters Conference. So that's a nice, clean title. It's really clear on what it's for. And then you can see the NACUBO function there is a 1000 for instruction. And we've received guidance from the NACUBO experts at NACUBO saying, conferences, if you're communicating educational content, that's an instructional activity. So they say conferences need to have that 1000 NACUBO function. So this is just an example of a clean program code that's got that good, clean NACUBO function and a nice, clean title to really tell easily what it's used for. And I believe this is the same program code just from a different view. So if you drill down into FTI PRGH, you can actually see the hierarchy of that program code and the NACUBO function that it rolls up to as well. So you can see that same 1000 4-digit NACUBO code there. So that might be helpful if you're going back to your office and reviewing a lot of your current program codes. But what if you want to request a new program code? Yes, a new activity, and you need to set some new codes up. How do you do that? When you're submitting a request for those, it's important to really properly describe what's going to be taking place on that program code for us so we can help you accurately assign a correct NACUBO function. So let's go through that and how that would look. So here's a link here to our FPI request form and how you would make that request. So that's a hyperlink. So once you get back to your office, you can link on that. And it'll bring you to an Excel form. And here in the top, you just fill out your basic contact information. But boxes 5, 6, and 7 are really important here. And this is where the boxes where you say, okay, here's what I'm going to be using this program code for. Here's the types of expenditures I expect to see on here. So instead of just putting something like new program code for faculty member X, if you submit something like that to us and we see it, we're going to have a lot more questions for you. Kind of, once again, going back to that Friday Facta last week. Well, that's for faculty member X, but what are they going to be doing? Are they going to be doing their research activities on there? Is it going to be for faculty development? Is it going to be for some of their instructional activities, some of their course development? So the more details you can provide on these to us on the front end when you submit those, it's really going to make your lives easier, and it's going to make the request go a lot smoother and more quickly. And then down here, this is the lower part of the form. Here's some more information too. We're asking for a suggested title and so forth. And once again, I just recommend if you can make the titles as clean as possible, it would really be helpful. So, for example, instead of Professor X program code or Professor X ICR, like some units would maybe request, it'd be a lot cleaner if you say, Professor X dash research or Professor X dash faculty development. Something like that in the title to make it really clear. Okay, yes, the program code's for this faculty member, but what are they going to be using it for too? So if someone glances at the title or the next financial manager comes along and glances at that title, they'll just see it right away. It's like, oh, this is for their research activity. It's nice and clear. And then we can easily tie that to the NACUBO function that was assigned to it. And then finally, some of this also plays into new fund requests. For example, if you're requesting a new gift fund, gift funds are a little different and unique where they actually use what we call a generic program code that starts with a 19, as opposed to starting with your 3-digit org code like a state or ICR program code would. But really the same mentality goes into that as well. You just need to make sure that, if, for example, if you have a gift fund that's going to be used for student scholarships, we just want to make sure we're assigning that 191787 program code to that gift fund so that the expenditures are ultimately reported in the correct scholarships NACUBO function. And finally, to wrap it up, we have a accounting reference materials webpage that has some useful information on NACUBO functions. It's all highlighted here. The second bullet here, this is kind of just a large PDF guide that gives some overviews of some of these definitions that we've talked about today in more detail and more examples. So that might be a useful resource to print out and have at your desk side to refer to as you're requesting and researching your program codes. And this last link kind of shows a different allowability of fund types with different kinds of NACUBO functions. As you'll see on this next screen, there are some times, in this example, we technically are not allowed to have an instructional program code with an instruction NACUBO function on ICR funds because, ICR funds, if you think about where they're generated from, just overhead from grant activity, it's not really related to the income fund and the tuition that we charge to the students and the instructional activities that we partake in here at the university. So in theory, we really shouldn't be using ICR funds for instructional activities. So that's just one example, but this grid kind of shows you the different NACUBO functions that make sense and that we can and cannot use on different types of funds that you have. And then, as you get back to your office and want to research some of these or think about it more, if you don't want to talk to me, here's some of my contact information, and I'd be more than happy to help you walk through these and clean some of your activity up if there's some that need edited. Is there any questions before I wrap up here today? All right. Well, thanks again for your time. We appreciate it.
So I was really glad John gave that presentation because I think having the program code, not having the NACUBO function apparent within the code itself or in the title, I think the importance of the NACUBO function sometimes gets lost. So it's something that I think we all need to be aware of. This is really an awareness. And I really wanted to stress the importance, if you think about, well, what does it matter if this impacts financial reporting? Well, this impacts our financial reporting, yes, but it also impacts all of our state reporting. It impacts the development of the F&A rate that we charge to grants. We actually have our board-approved budget also includes NACUBO function, and it's used in peer rankings. So as accurate as we could get it, this is important, and really this is about awareness. So next we've got Larry Hanazuski and Blanca Lorenzo with UPB to give us some updates and reminders. Whoops, almost forgot. Did it again.
Oh, good afternoon. I'm Larry, that's Blanca. Okay, and so what we'll speak about today is we're going to go over some information about the new 2020 Form W-4, and we're going to talk about the adjustment calc deadline. We'll also go over the holiday payroll calc schedule. We're going to talk about the CMS 30-day rule. And we'll also have some information about the new ability LMS orientation registration. So in regards to the 2020 Form W-4, the IRS is finally caught up to their new law that they put into effect, not so new anymore, but this was in the Tax Cuts and Job Act of 2017. The IRS redesigned Form W-4, which is going to be effective January 1st, 2020. So it's changing rather significantly. I'm going to show you a picture of it up here in a second that you're not going to be able to see. So the link is here in the presentation so that you'll be able to go out to the IRS website later and take a look at it. As I promised, you can't read that. But some important information that you do need to know about this form is that for any employee that is hired or starts on January 1st and beyond of 2020, they will be required to fill out the new form, the 2020 Form W-4. Now, if you're employed prior to January 1st, then your current W-4 will stay in effect. We'll still withhold based on your current W-4. Again, you won't be required to fill out a new W-4, but we would highly encourage you to do that for a couple reasons. Your tax liabilities that you have every year may be changing. You may be currently having not enough being withheld, maybe having too much withheld, which is one of the reasons why the Form W-4 was redesigned. It was to help prevent all these, the IRS from having to refund all the excess amounts that they're withholding from employees' payroll checks. So that was one of the main motivators with them redesigning this form. So as you do your tax filing this year, you may notice that may be true for you, where you're having too much withheld or not enough. Well, you're going to want to go out there then and probably update your W-4. So definitely would encourage you to do that. The biggest things that are different in the new W-4 is that it eliminates all the allowances for purposes of calculating calculating your taxes. So, you may file 1, 2, 3, 0 exemptions. You won't see that on the new W-4 anymore, though that's not even mentioned. There's also a new section on the W-4 that allows for you to select or check off the multiple jobs. So you may have more than one job, and you want that to be considered in the amount of withholdings that you're going to be liable for. You would indicate that on the W-4. It also allows, if you're filing jointly with your spouse, to take that in consideration on the calculation of your withholding. So that's a big significant change. And then also what was taken away, I believe it was last year, and being added back in 2020 is a checkbox for the head of household filing status. So those are the big differences in the new W-4. And so that is pretty much on that topic. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, well then we'll go to the next topic, which is the adjustment calc deadline. So as of another January 1st, 2020 effective change is effective January 1st. The deadline for submitting your Paris prior underpayment adjustments will be Friday, close of business at 5 p.m. Currently, the deadline to submit your PUAs are Tuesday noon, and they pay Friday. It's now going to be Friday, close of business, and they will pay the next Friday for those adjustments. So the main reason for this is that the volume of adjustments has increased significantly, and we are finding ourselves in our office with not enough time to process all these transactions. And so we're needing, and what really happens is that the transactions, don't come in until a few hours before the deadline, and so then we're left with only a day to process all those transactions. So we need those to get entered in the system sooner to allow us enough time for getting those transactions processed and processed accurately, of course. So that change again will go effect in January, at the beginning of January. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Larry?
Yes.
Why do you think the volume is increasing in those types of transactions?
Why do you ask me such tough questions?
So, it's unnerving that volume is going up.
Yeah.
Other kinds of transactions, I guess.
Yeah, I think that I haven't studied that enough to give you an answer. I know what I would suspect is the reason, but I believe there's probably multiple reasons. I mean, one of the reasons is that we haven't seen a decrease as people are in the system using it. I don't know if we have a lot of new users, and that may be causing, people to not be as aware of the information going in, where they're needing to add maybe some overtime or some type of premium, and so they want to add that additional payment, they need to add that additional amount for the employee, so then that adjustment has to be made. That's one of the reasons. Maybe we have a lot more students that aren't submitting their timesheets on time. So that seems to be a population of individuals that always has a significant amount of transactions. And I suspect there's some other reasons why, and we will be doing analysis on that, just haven't done that quite yet.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions?
Can I just ask why you wait till January if it's such a volume now, and it's causing an impact? You don't like wait till January.
That is,
Our office has actually implemented the Friday to Friday. We're not gonna be doing that because the majority of our reasons for submitting, PUAs is because people are not submitting their timesheets in advance. And then Wednesday morning, it's like, oh, I forgot, or at 5 o'clock, oh, I forgot. So some funds have to be on an individual to not tax, whereas we don't have to go back and do this as frequently to make sure they're being paid when they're not upholding their responsibilities. So I just, that's why you
wow.
January to do it.
Yeah, I think the question is why aren't we implementing this change sooner rather than later? And I think the further comment is that that I think you were saying that there could be a lot of individuals not getting their transactions in timely and then not being accurate, and then they have to go back in and do these transactions, these parish transactions. So the reason why we're holding off until January is to give you time and give us time to go out and communicate to all the campuses and prepare you, with knowing in advance that the impact that this will have on you. Let me give you one example where especially this will impact. So you were bringing up in the calc process. So normally, and I say normally because there are some exceptions, the payroll biweekly calc ends on a Wednesday. And so currently you would have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and half a Tuesday to enter all your transactions in the Paris that are going to pay on the Friday. Well, that'll definitely change significantly because now in January, after the calc on Wednesday, you'll have Thursday and Friday to get those transactions entered in Paris to pay the following Friday. So you won't have the Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and half a Tuesday. So again, making the business community aware that this significant change is occurring, and just want you to know this ahead of time before we start in January. But then from that point forward, it will be the Friday close of business deadline. Any other questions? Okay. And speaking about pay calcs, we're in the holiday season already, believe it or not. And our first deadline will be occurring in just another 2 weeks here, or a week and a half actually. And so for the Thanksgiving week pay date of November 29th, those adjustments, those PUAs are going to be due by noon Friday, November 22nd. So that's next Friday at noon. The deadline for those adjustments to pay on 11/29, the following Friday, will be noon next week. And then any adjustments that come in after noon on the 22nd and before and by noon on December 3rd will pay on December 6th, Friday, December 6th. And then the last adjustment calc that of the year will pay on Friday, December 20th. Those prior underpayment adjustments will need to be submitted in Paris by December 13th. And again, that'll be the last adjustment calc for 2019. Anybody have any questions about that? And so obviously I said that was the last one. So during the holiday break, there will be no adjustment calc the week of December 23rd. The first adjustment calc in January will be paid on Friday the 3rd. And so the deadline to submit those adjustments in Paris will be by noon Monday, December 23rd. Now, the next calc, which is the biweekly calc, in the first biweekly calc in 2020 is going to be on a much different schedule than it normally is. Though that calc, so we come back on a Thursday from the holiday break, which is the 2nd of January. And so the feeder units, they're going to have their mass time entry files to us by 4:55 p.m. on that day. The department approvers will have until noon on the 2nd to approve all their timesheets. Super users will have until 5 p.m. And then the current pay adjustments deadline will be at 10 a.m. on Friday the 3rd. Now, that is a very different schedule. So we will be sending out, anybody who is a approver, a proxy approver, who's a Paris reviewer, initiator, super users, will be sending out communications all throughout the holiday season reminding you of all these deadlines. We already included all this information in our November newsletter. We'll also, and I think we already sent, it was last week, our first communication about the holiday deadlines, and we'll be sending out, like I said, you'll be getting many more communications as we come up to each one of these milestones. We'll be sending you out information about that particular calc. So I think the next one that'll go out will be the one about the adjustment calc deadline next week. We'll be sending out by the end of this week, so you'll be seeing something coming in your email this week. Does anybody have any questions about all the information I just gave you about calc deadlines? Okay, well, at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Blanca.
Good afternoon. I'm Blanca, he's Larry. Okay, so this is not new information. I'm sure most of you already know that anybody who's a new hire or newly benefit eligible has 30 days from the date of hire to make their benefit elections. It's super important to get them in on time and allow them enough time to do this, because otherwise they default, and when they default, they don't have the ability to add their dependents to their coverage. We've seen this happen a lot. We want to let you guys know that this is important enough to keep mentioning, because CMS has really backtracked on allowing any type of, how do you say, like bypassing this rule. So they're not allowing, any type of exceptions to this rule. I don't know if it's because they have new people. I don't know what's happening, but whenever we submit something for a review, we're more often we're getting it back as no, not accepting the exception. So we wanted to let you guys know that CMS is cracking down, and they're not, we can't really, it's not our authority to make an exception. We have to request it from them. So putting it out there. So the delay for separations, updated in HRFE and how that affects employees is that if you delay entering an end date for an employee, that means that they're more than likely going to have a deduction for health insurance that will need to be refunded. And it's an issue for the former employee because they have to wait for the state comptrollers to do a refund for this deduction, and that can take, I've heard, 6 months to a year for them receiving that. And then they're calling us and requesting, you know, what's happening? You haven't given me my refund, but it's really out of our control. Does anybody have any questions on the CMS 30-day? No? Okay, so one of the things that has changed with the orientation registration is that we moved over to Ability LMS. And why that matters is that a lot of HR representatives was taking the initiative for the new hire to register them for an orientation. You're not able to do that anymore. You probably already noticed if you tried doing it. It does require the individual to log in with their NetID and password in order to register for the sessions. So we want to make sure that you guys are aware, just in case it looks different. It is different. You don't want to log in with your NetID and password because then you'll be registered for the session instead of the person. And this is for all three, so the new hire, benefit enrollment, the enrollment assistance sessions that's mostly for UIUC campus, and then the SIRS webinars. Any questions? Okay, so this is pretty much what I've covered with Ability LMS. I just went ahead. So this is the registration site. If you go to the OBFS website, most employees are going to access this from the new hire if they're new employees, but you can also register when you're newly benefit eligible, and you'll go do that on the OBFS website. Under the training center, there is a registration page. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions? No?
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'd say there's definitely some important reminders in there. I think that's wise to do another plug about the 30-day CMS rule. That sounds important. We don't want anybody to not be able to insure their dependents, so that I think that's a good reminder. So next we've got Jason Bain to provide some updates on some functionality in MyUI Financials to be released later this month.
Good afternoon, everyone, and those of you joining us online, appreciate you taking the opportunity to if you can't be here with us, at least you're here, again, remotely. We are actually in phase 3 of MyUI Financials. So when we started this in 2016, we brought out the All Funds tab, and somewhere between 17 and 18, we brought out the Self-Supporting and Service Plans tab, and now we're going to bring to you the Financial Summary Trends tab. So just about every 18 months or something, we're making major improvements to MyUI Financials. So today we're just going to give you a quick rundown of what that information is, how it's going to look when you do log in on November 20th. This is currently what MyUI Financials looks like, that main dashboard. So kind of burn that image in your brain right now because I'm going to do a quick flip, show you what it's going to look like on November 20th, and we'll quickly talk about what's changing. So we've given a fresh new look. Okay. Everything is still there. Okay. We haven't removed anything. We've just moved it a little bit. Okay, so we've reorganized it. You can see at the very top, we've got My UI Financials and Access Manager right next to one another versus Access Manager being over there on the far right-hand side. Below that, you'll see the All Funds tab. You'll see the Self-Supporting and Service Plans tab, as well as that new Financial Summary Trends tab. So they're all right there, quick and easy to see there along that left-hand side. We haven't reorganized the filters, but we've laid them out a little bit differently. So they're stacked cleanly, pushed off to the left-hand side. Again, you can see the fiscal year and fiscal period. Then we've got our focal string. Then we have the filter and reset buttons. That's the get records button now. Right? So we've just renamed them. It's more of a standard to use that terminology. The only big thing that has changed from a visual standpoint is the Help tab that has been across the top has now been moved to the lower left-hand corner where you'll see that Help Guide link. So that's the biggest from a, where'd it go? So it's now a link in that lower left-hand corner. And as always, you can find our email address at the bottom there, myuifinancials@uillinois.edu. So here and the big news today is talking about the financial summaries trends. Okay. As you open up, click on that tab, this is your first view of it. This is what you're going to see. Okay. We'll break that down in just a minute, but I want to talk about how you get access to this Trends tab. If you can see something on the All Funds tab, you have access to the Trends tab. Okay. So if you've got new members that say, hey, I'm really excited about this, I do need this aggregated information that is now in my UI Financials, set them up with their grant code, set them up with the department code, set them up with some kind of access to the dashboard. That's all it takes. Okay? Pretty simple. A couple other things I want to point out just at this view before we go into, again, more details. There's some new terminology on this page. There's a link there. It's the dashboard glossary. Okay, that will give you some additional assistance. We've also added in the top right-hand corner, you can see the quick download area. That's a nice formatted way to download what you're seeing in the middle area, okay, on the main display of the tabs. Okay. If you just want the raw data, again, this is Tableau. If you guys haven't heard that, we've talked about it several times in the past, but this is based on Tableau, right? So you have the ability to just download all the raw data. And in a couple slides, when I talk about all the raw data, I'm talking about all of it. It's this, I don't want to say disgusting, but it's amazing. It's sick as a new term of the data that you can get through this new tab. Okay? So again, those couple of things I want to point out. We'll zoom in real quick, take a look at this top section again, just to highlight information that's going to be important about this and differentiate it from the All Funds tab and the Self-Supporting and Service Plan tabs. Okay? Just as a reminder, this information, because the volume is so large, it is more of an aggregate, we're updating it on a weekly basis. Okay? Not every night like we do in the other application. Okay? So again, differentiate those. Okay? We throw it right here in the middle, in the financial summary area. This is the last time it was updated. Okay, just as a, put it in your face. Okay, so you're aware, again, most current information is as of, again, November 10th. Okay. The other thing we'll take a look at while we're right here is these are the 6 new tabs. So buy one Trends tab, and you get 6 new tabs. Talk about a deal, right? It's holiday season, right? It's better than any Friday. What's the Friday sale? Come on, Black Friday. There you go. Thanks. So again, those 6 new tabs, and we're going to break those down in just one moment. But I really wanted to emphasize those pieces, right? So keep that in mind. Next, let's talk about the filters and how you get information. So along that left-hand side, we have all the filters that you might want to use. And I'm excited about this because there's some different things that, again, the All Funds tab just doesn't give us. Okay? So again, just taking a quick look at this, we have the ability to, again, select your chart, select your department, much like the filters on the All Funds tab or the self-supporting tab. But we've got specific focals that we can drill down to. And the biggest one for me, and one of the things that we've heard about is, can we sort my UI financials? Can we get it by grant code? Now you can. Okay, so from a detailed standpoint, if you're still on the operation side and not worried about aggregate information and you want grant specific, you have that ability now to filter in the grant area. Okay. One thing to be aware of is, again, on this dashboard, you're going to get no results, right? Because every time we select one of these filters, it's going to kind of refresh itself, right? You select chart 1, then it's going to give you the list of colleges that are under chart 1, and then you can select from the drop down, okay? We don't want to populate that dashboard every time you make a change, so make sure that you go to the fiscal year and select which fiscal year or fiscal years you want information gathered for. So we're not going to populate the dashboard in that Trends tab until you've specified what fiscal year or years you want. Okay? So if you don't get data and you're like, oh, I thought I did it, double check to make sure that filter has been identified and you have selected. You have to actively select a fiscal year. Okay? And I'll remind everybody, we will have tons and tons of resources from a job aids perspective going out there from our website, so we will show you where that information will be contained at the end of the session. So just again, the ability to select your college. When you select your college, then we're going to start to pull financial information for the financial summary tab. And when I say we're going to pull it for your college, we're going to pull all of it for your college. Let's take a look at that right now. This is what you're going to get if you select a college, if you select a department, whatever you selected in the filters along the left-hand side. Now we're going to provide you with that information in this first financial summary tab. And again, all these images that I'm showing you, don't go do the math because I've spliced things out so I can get them to fit on the screen. Okay? You're going to have details for the current year budget, for the balance forward, much like you see here at the bottom. For the expenditures, you're going to see more detail than what's being provided on this slide. Okay, but I wanted to give you major categories so you get an idea of the amount of information and the types of information that you're going to see. Their piece that makes this so different than what we have on the All Funds tab is how we're showing you the data. Right? So you've selected your college, for example. Here are all the state funds aggregated and pulled together. All the gifts, okay? All the grants and contracts, all the self-supporting funds in one place. Again, think aggregate, big picture. And then again, we've got grand totals at the end. These categories, you'll see those throughout in different areas of the tabs. But this is the BSO, or Budget Summary of Operations structure or organization of the expense codes. Okay, and we'll see another example in a minute where we kind of see that in more detail. Again, from an operations standpoint, we're seeing account codes and maybe account types. This is just one more level up, or another way to organize that information. The next tab is now the account type details. So we move from the information that was displayed in the financial summary to the account type details. So it breaks those same dollars down. Now it's being contained or being presented by, again, account types. Or you can see those BSO categories listed. I can get my mouse to, there we go. Okay, those BSO. Again, breaking those down. Okay, again, for your college, there's all the state expenses, institutional support, or institutional funds, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, just a lot of information there. Start at high level, we're drilling down to see more specific details about account type details. Breaking that down even further, now we're going to show you the FOP that was used for all those different categories. Okay. Again, just goes on and on and on. Now we're showing you slightly different information. Here's the unencumbered balance, right? How much your balance available to spend, less your encumbrances on those amounts, gives you, again, now your balance available. Okay. Again, here's examples of the state fund. okay? The fourth tab, okay, and we've got two more even after that. The fourth tab in this process takes us all the way down from, here's the state, okay, taking it all the way down into the specific transaction. And this is where the operational folks and the data folks just go crazy, okay? Because again, My UI Financials, this Trends tab is being managed by us, okay? System offices, university accounting, Brent's strong desire that everybody has the financial information that they need, and it's easy for people to use, okay? So this is one of those tools that we've become very passionate about, and making sure that you guys get the information you want in an easy way. So again, this could be every single transaction for your entire college, literally for 5 years. Okay. I mean, and from a timing standpoint, we're not talking snap of a finger, but we're talking 20 seconds. We're talking 30 seconds, max. Okay, we're not talking set up for lunch and go away and come back. Okay, because there's some things that we have that it takes a little bit of time. We're grinding through a lot of data, and it's coming back in a reasonable, when you think about the volume, a reasonable amount of time. Okay? So again, blows my mind. Blows my mind. So those are the first 4 tabs in the new Financial Summary Trends tab. Let's talk about the last 2. And really, this is kind of why we're here, is these 2 graph tabs to help us quickly visually see what's happening. How are we doing over the last 5 years? So let's take a look at those graph tabs. There's a budget one and one that's focused on expenditures. We'll take a look at just a couple of those. And one thing I will highlight too is as we go to the graph tabs, you have the ability to again, pull multiple fiscal years. So you can make that change right here in this area or select different periods. Okay. One thing I will caution as we think about this, when we select the period in Banner, a lot of times when we're doing it through Eddy or Mobius View or some of those other ones, it may be through the end of that period. So if we pick period 4, it's going to be July, August, September, and October. Okay? You'll see when you do the drill downs and you make the selections, it's specific periods. So you're specifying period 1, you're specifying period 2. Okay? The reason I bring that up is many of our budget transactions only occur in periods 1 and 2. Right? So if you look at period 3 and there are no budget transactions for your state and ICR funds, you gift funds and things like that, you're not going to see those budget amounts in there. So when you're doing transactions or you're looking for those budget information, select period 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Do comparisons in that way. Okay? So keep that in mind. And we do, again, it's all highlighted in our job aids as well as in all of our instructional materials that we have. Okay? So I believe on each one of the tabs we have 3 or 4 graphs, okay, just helping identify a budget by type of fund. So again, just a quick glance. Here's our color scheme. Here's our table along that right-hand side, quickly identifying, oh, look at our state budget. There's our self-supporting. There's our gift, whatever the case may be. And then down below on each of the graphs is the actual numbers that help support that. Okay, so again, there's more detail. It's like, there's a big swing between 50 million and 100 million, and I'm not sure what the actual detail is, but we can see that here. One of the other graphs is this budget by category, and I just want to take a moment I was pulling this up, trying to create this information, and I literally just pulled this up, like, hey, look at that. That department is going to really bite the bullet. They are not going to buy supplies, services, and equipment. They didn't even budget for it. I'm going, this is again, visually show the impact, right? I'm like, nice job, 2017, that is the year. And then I did it. I went to budget versus expense for 2017. The dark blue is their budget. The light blue is their expense. They tried, right? They tried. That was their plan, not to buy any of those things in that category, but it's possible they did. They've exceeded their budget, okay? But again, I will look at this and go, hey, kudos to them, because of those last 4 years, 16, 17, 18, and 19, they underspent their budget, right? Okay. So then I flip to the next, again, another, this is on the expense tab, expense graphs. But then I looked at, again, taking a look at, okay, yeah, when it came down to it, they actually did have to buy supplies and services and equipment that year. So that's what I'm seeing, again, in this category here. So while they may not have budgeted for it, they gave a good effort, but they still spent, and it looks pretty much in line with every year that they've been spending. Any questions about this before I quickly talk about resources? All right. Again, take a look. There's, again, much more detail that we can go into. I don't know if we're going to do webinars for this, but if there is hey, I've been using it, I would like to know more information, please let me know. Contact us at myuifinancials@uillinois.edu and let us know, and we could set up some standard webinars that we do that focus simply on this tab. But again, we've got a lot of information on our website. Again, where can you find that? Visit us at our resource page. Okay, here's the link, but again, right there on obfs.uillinois.edu, you'll find our MyUI Financials page. We will be adding our trend summary job aids out there in the next couple of days. If you want to learn a little bit more, get more information about the budget summary for operations, feel free to visit the website that I provided. And again, you can always reach us at myuifinancials@uillinois.edu. One last call. All right, rock and roll. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, so if you can't tell, I'm personally really excited about this. I think MyUI Financials always did a great job of providing the granular FOP balances, but it always kind of bothered me that it didn't provide the aggregated financial information. And to see the trends visually, I think is a really big improvement. So I'm really excited about it. It's going to be out here later this month, so check it out. Next, FISHA updates, Mary Ellen.
Hello, my name is Mary Ellen, and I am an Associate Director in the Office of Budget and Financial Analysis, and I'm going to talk briefly about FISHA. How many of you received a FISHA email Monday or Tuesday? Yay. How many of you are new to the FISHA process this year? Okay, good. So looks like we're pretty much covered. So our goals for FISHA, as you know, it's a state-mandated program to aid Illinois state agencies in conducting reviews of their fiscal and administrative systems of internal control, and includes property assets management, financial management, transactions, lines of authority, accesses, and checks and balances. And our goal with having this online system is to be transparent and thorough. Everyone is using the same form at the same time. And we're also working to streamline the process as well. One of our goals this year, every year, is to reduce the number of surveys. And while the role reviews should be finished, if you do have any additional role review changes, let us know as soon as possible. In the past, we had to do one survey per 3-digit department, but we do not have to do that anymore. We also do not have to have 6-digit surveys. In any case where you have the same business managers who are working on different organizations, you can group those organizations together into one survey. We do realize that there are some 6-digit surveys that are necessary, so you can keep them if you need them. But this is part of an effort to kind of streamline the process. reduce the number of surveys out there. So in addition to any of your partial or no responses on the surveys, you also have to disclose any of your, if you've had any internal audits with findings that were flagged for review. And these will be flagged in FSHA, and I have a screen later that shows what that looks like. You also need to disclose any reportable deficits from fiscal year 19. The official deficit listing will be sent later this month to the deans and the vice chancellors and the AFOs. I'm going to be sending out a memo this week to remind you of the audits and to tell you about the deficits as well, if there are any deficits in your units. And if you are flagged for an audit and you have questions about that, please contact Neil Crowley in audits to find out we do not keep a copy of the audit in our office, so he can tell you what the audit was about. And when you're in the system, in the survey, and you do have an audit, this is what it looks like. You've got the red audit notification. And I believe this also shows up on the college level as well, when they submit the memo, that you'll have a flag saying you had an audit, you need to talk about it. So we've got some samples of how to disclose, but you do need to have a clear plan on how you're resolving the issue, list an individual who's responsible for implementing the plan, provide a timeline, and everything that is partial and non-compliant in your surveys must be included in the college and vice chancellor memo. And we're not looking for war and peace. We're looking for something that's concise, but includes all these items. And if you do not have sufficient disclosure, we will send the surveys and the memos back to you. And these are some sample actions. You're implementing new policies, you're training staff, adding internal controls, segregating duties, hiring new staff, or engaging the business office or the budget office to provide assistance. I'll have a timetable a little bit later, but the college vice chancellor memo will be due on December 9th, and it should be addressed to your particular unit's leadership. You upload a copy of the memo into the FSHA application, and you also send a scanned copy of the memo to bpa@uic.edu. And again, if you have not fully disclosed your non-compliance or your audits or your deficits, we are going to return the surveys and the memo back to you. So who does what on this campus? We have two campus contacts for UIC to help each of you navigate FSHA. And that's Dana Lebreau, you can stand, and Alicia Burr in our office. You guys can stand up, please. I'm supposed to introduce you. Thank you. So they can both answer your questions, but Dana is focusing more on the FSHA system and roles, editing roles, and filling out the surveys, while Alicia is going to be looking at the central review of the surveys. If you haven't disclosed something, or if our office has questions about what you have disclosed. And key dates. So the role reviews should be completed, but if you do have additional edits, please get them to Dana as soon as possible. And if you have any inactive organization codes that are in FSHA, talk to Dana and Alicia as soon as possible. So the application is now open to the submitters and the approvers. And that was the email that you received early Monday. Those surveys are due to your college and vice chancellor office on December 9th. And I believe the system will be sending out reminders to those individuals when we get close to the deadline. From there, the college memo is due on January 7th. And this is a list of webinar dates and resources. Jason had sent out an email yesterday to all the users with webinar information, questions. Wow, okay. So again, if you have any questions about FSHA, talk to Dana or Alicia. I was supposed to announce I'm leaving the budget office, so I will not be answering any FSHA questions. Is that why you're leaving? Yes. Yes, it was just too much. So thank you.
So the FSHA process is an important process. You know, it is a state requirement. It's not like anybody's going to get in trouble if you report anything. It's an exercise that we need to go through, and we need to understand where our risks are, what kind of improvements we need to make. Internal controls and segregation of duties should be important to all of us. So it's an enterprise-wide thing too. So it's not like this is only for UIC. This is every department at the University of Illinois system. Oh, payables. So now we have get to know university payables. Susie Baker.
Hi, I'm Susie Baker. I'm with University Payables. I'm accompanied today by Tammy Ziegler, who's also from University Payables. We'll be here afterwards if you have any unit-specific questions, but we can take questions, well, I will, during the presentation if there are any. So today we'd like to talk about what exactly Payables does, what our responsibilities are, and talk about the policies and procedures that we follow when conducting our transactions, and provide you some information on our current projects and objectives, and also talk about how we teams with units and employees to comply with our current policies and procedures that we follow. So this is the UPay leadership. Jim Martini is our senior director. Darren Strader is the senior associate director of support services. He oversees customer service, operations and analytics, card services, and vendor maintenance. And I'm the senior associate director on the other side of payables and payment operations. So I manage the sections that process purchase order payables, the direct pay transactions, which Tammy is heavily involved with. She's a senior coordinator for that section, as well as our outreach, education, and communication section. Yeah, this pretty much echoes what I just said, but the outreach, education, and communication section helps us with both internal and external communications and trainings and things like that. So they help us organize when we go to units. If you need us to come and provide information to your unit and discuss specific topics, they'd be involved in helping set that up, and any of the announcements you see coming out from us in the OBFS site through there, Kathy has a hand in that as well, Kathy Young. We serve the entire University of Illinois system. That's all 3 universities, all 3 medical centers, and 125 extension offices. And we do that with a staff, depending upon our staffing level, of 47 to 50 people. And with that number of people, we do a lot. You see the numbers are on the form on here. The top 4 are the transactions that we processed in FY19. Below, we also provide some information on what we manage, and that's 7,000 plus card accounts and 60,000 vendor records. It feels like we should have every vendor in the world in our system, but we keep updating them and adding new ones daily, so it's a job security for the vendor maintenance team. And our objectives broadly are to process payments, part of our name, to review and verify payments. We do have the university policies and procedures and other ones I'll discuss here in a moment. And we do want to educate and partner with units. Ultimately, we're here to help you get the payments you need to have processed, the reimbursements you need to have processed. So we're happy to, like I said, come out and talk to you all or your units, or walk you through how to handle specific transactions. And we ensure and enforce compliance. Not the most glamorous or happy part of our job, but it is something that we are tasked with doing. And under that, I said we are answerable to many different policies, procedures, and regulations. So here are just some of them we have. There are federal laws and regulations, state ones, granting agency rules, university policies and procedures. So we have to combine all that knowledge and apply that to all the payments that we're making. So, for example, I would love to be able to pay more in per diem or to offer more in the way of the lodging rates. Unfortunately, those are set for us by the Illinois Higher Education Travel Control Board. I sympathize with everyone, but unfortunately, we do appreciate the feedback. It helps us, we can send that forward and hopefully get them to change things. Maybe. They haven't changed since I've been with payables. That's like 19 years, but there's always hope. And this is basically the same information in a more graphic form. So these are all the forces that, affect, what we do, how we do, that sort of thing. We do want to educate and partner with units. So we provide resources, education, and communication to units. We have lots of job aids and things, particularly out there on the TEM website, which we're in the process of reviewing. So if you have any suggestions for those, we're happy to take your suggestions, or if there's one that we don't have that you would like to see or think would be useful, I'm happy to take those suggestions. We observe and ensure that we have appropriate separation of duties, and that's within payables as well. For example, those of our staff who enter and maintain that ginormous vendor database can't submit a requisition, process a payment, or effect payment. So that way we have not any one person in payables able to do everything. We all know a little bit, or sometimes more than a little bit, about the other sections do, but we're not always able to go in and process every type of transaction. And we want to provide our services in an accurate, timely, and professional manner that gets interesting at a couple times a year, at the end of the calendar year and end of the fiscal year. We're having some technical issues with one of the systems we use, so our POQ is climbing up there, but we're doing our best to get things processed as quickly as we can. And with those payments, we need to, in order to process them properly, understand what's happening, and follow all of the guidelines and answer to the other agencies and things then that we have to follow. We do need to have all the information there. So if there's documentation that should be required for the payment, we do ask that they are all with it when you submit it. That way we don't have to return or contact you to ask questions. So that can range anywhere from a vendor quote to an invoice to a conference brochure if you have conference lodging. And we also need to have detailed explanations for every expense. Everyone loves talking about the business purpose and justification. I know it because we hear comments about that all the time, and it can get confusing. We're going to talk about that more in a subsequent slide, but we do have to know why we're buying things. Audits have been mentioned here quite a bit today, and the external auditors are asking for more information. So that's why we need to be sure that we have it to make sure that expenses are appropriate when we do process payment, but then also we can hopefully head them off and not have them have to contact you. If we have the information for receipts or why something was done or an expense was made, we can answer them for you. And that's, again, why all the details are important. We need to have them for the audit trail. We need to have them for payment processing because we do try to be consistent, but many expenses are similar but not the same. There may be subtle differences that make things a little different, so we're trying to be as consistent as we can, but often the expenses we're asked to process are not consistent with some things gone before, so we try and do our best with that. And the documentation that we collect and the information that we collect are used for many purposes. Like I said, the auditors, for FOIA requests, we have requests to pull specific pieces of financial information and things that we've processed for FOIA requests. There are specific transactions that grants have to approve in an approval queue. Some units have approval queues. So there are reasons other than just to be picky that we collect all this data. There's several different entities that look at what we have out there. And we don't want payments to be delayed. I think the objective for us, like I said, and for everyone else, is to get the payments made, get the reimbursements made as timely as possible. But we need all the details that are necessary for a transaction to do that. So if things are incomplete up front, there's pieces of missing information, or if we have to contact another university unit for their expertise, this can delay the process because there are many other units, and I have a slide here that are frequent ones that we work with, for their expertise. No one wants me answering a tax question. I will tell you that. I know more about IRS regulations than I ever thought I would, but I should be the authority. So we do contact tax a lot. We're working with them and USFSCO quite frequently these days, because payments to students are an issue that's been bubbling up. And while we know some about what should be happening, we usually have a good idea of what's occurring, we do need to contact the experts and make sure we're making the right decision. We don't want to negatively affect the students' finances, and we also want to make sure that they're processed and allocated appropriately. And ER returns. Again, Tammy and I can talk to you later if you have specific unit questions, but we did want to provide some information on the most common reasons why ERs are returned. But before I do, I would like to say that approximately 87% of the ERs that are submitted are processed, they're not returned, they come in, they go out, and it's just, we don't have any issues with them, and no one has to be contacted by us for things. So if you are experiencing a higher return rate than that, please get with us. Tammy has been out for several meetings with folks on all three of the universities to explain, the ER process and how they should be constructed and answer questions. So we're happy to provide those resources for you. But the most common reasons for ER returns are an incorrect business purpose, because the business purpose controls what is displayed under that. So the information for employee travel and arranged travel are different. And so most often when an ER is returned, it's because an incorrect purpose was used, so all the information below it isn't exactly what we need to process the transaction. Also, the incomplete business justification, I'm going to put a pin in that because we have a slide on that coming up. And the incorrect expense type. In the past, many people have used, for example, general services when there are other expense types that are more accurate that could be used, and they affect reporting and things on down the line. So we do try and make sure that people are using the most accurate expense type rather than just a general one, just to lump everything in there. And the business purpose. We need the business purpose to so we can validate the payment, we can take a look and see why it's there. But we're required to have it from requirements for the IRS economical plan, which states that the payments have to have a bona fide business purpose. It's subjective, I will fully admit to that. And it's often when we return it, it's because our processors, we process stuff for everything, all those universities, all those units, and we're not entirely conversant in what everybody else is doing, which is why we ask for the why. Melissa Plotner, who is the Senior Assistant Director for Payment Operations, works closely with Tammy and me, often says, just have a verb in there, presented a paper, or went for professional development, something, just a verb to tell us why you went. We get a lot of things saying who went somewhere, where they went, and to what, but we often don't have the why. So the more you can include that, the fewer returns or questions we're going to have about your business purpose. And we are looking at the information we collect and how it's presented for the business purpose. So it's under review, and we're trying to make changes to it to make it easier for folks to understand what we need and why we need it. So it's an ongoing process. And please spell out acronyms as much as possible. I know things are sometimes in the backup, but if you just spell it out, as Jim, if you've ever talked to him, he will have told you probably that he's a former banker, because he says that a lot. But to a banker, NSF means something very different than to someone in grants and contracts. So we just need to have things spelled out, if at all possible. Any general questions on the business purpose? No? Okay. Again, Tammy, I'll be here afterwards if you have more specific comments or issues with more returns than perhaps that 12, 13% that we typically experience. We have several initiatives going on, projects we're working on and things we're taking a look at. And we're reviewing and changing TEM verbiage and notice content. We're now returning things and not rejecting them, like we communicate them in the notifications you get when something has been returned. We're asking for specifics when we return an ER. We have been doing this all along. We've had a lot of new staff. We're just trying to redo the process and remind everybody what we're looking for. If someone's reviewing your ER and there are reasons why it needs to be returned, they should be listing all those reasons. Now, sometimes, yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. We're looking at reviewing a lot of things for adjudication level of TEM and looking at training our staff to help with that. We are working with the source to pay program with iBuy optimization, as well as looking at expenses. There's a customer advisory groups meeting in all the universities to talk about the system itself and how that works, or how they'd like it to work in the future, and another group, the TRIP group, that's looking at policy and practice. And then we have a card program review happening. And basically, this slide, plan in advance if you can. Let us know in advance if something looks a little odd and you may, or just different, and you want like some guidance on it. Input from us up front will save time on the back end. And this is how you can contact us. So, any questions? Again, we'll be here afterwards. Thank you. Yes?
I asked a question about there's a mandatory information form. And right now, I think that you request the mandatory information form, we need a fax.
Yeah.
You have a special fax number. Can you, can we just use the email and me?
So the question is, with the vendor information form, we have a fax number listed, and can they be emailed? Unfortunately, they cannot be emailed at this time because the email process is not secure. There's many chances for those who would want to do nefarious things to intercept those emails. A fax line is much more secure. That's one of the things we're looking at. We're trying to find a different way to do that because, you know, faxes are becoming more and more obsolete. So we do, I know it's a hassle, but just for privacy's sake, we prefer them via fax or US mail at this point.
Yeah, because right now some department may, they probably don't have the fax machine.
I understand, yeah, so we're looking at it, but unfortunately, we don't have a solution I can present to you today. Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Come on up, Charla. There you go. Go for it. Do you have a presentation?
Yeah.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charla Roberts. I'm the Director of Procurement Diversity for the University of Illinois System. I got to stay at the mic for them to hear. Our role is to ensure minorities, women's, persons with disabilities, as well as veterans participate in the overall University of Illinois process in procurements. Who in the audience know what the state's diversity goal requirement is? Raise your hand. What is it? 20%. And that's why we're here today. We need your help to help us reach that goal. Right now, we're currently doing roughly about 88 million with minority and women-owned vendors, and we have a personal goal set by Michael Bass to ensure that we're doing at least 100 million by the end of our fiscal year. So we need your help, and I want you to listen to the presentation of Electrical Resource Management. They are a minority and women-owned vendor that has a strategic partnership with B&H, and when you do business with them, you're helping us reach our goal. Without further ado, Rod Young, and we have DEEPL handing out surveys that we would like for you to fill out really quickly that we'll collect so they'll be able to contact you. Again, Rod Young. Oh, I didn't go through my presentation, but there you go.
Thank you, thank you. And feel free to do that 100 million with us directly if you'd like. So I just, as Charlotte introduced, said, my name is Rod Young. I have DEEPL Pater here with me as well. She's handing out some surveys. And I just want to take a couple minutes just to, one, introduce B&H, in case you're not familiar, introduce our company, Electrical Resource Management, and tell you why we can hopefully bring some value. B&H was started in 1973 by two gentlemen. The initials B&H, that's what it stands for. They started in photo, developing 35 millimeter film, and today they are a $4 billion company. With over 700,000 products from 7,000 different manufacturers. in New York, in Manhattan, New York. Sorry, I'm trying to go a little fast. I know we're running out of time here. They have a retail store that takes up about 2 blocks on 34th Street in Manhattan, where you can go in and touch and feel all the products there in person. The product lines extend from photo and video, AV, presentation equipment, pro audio, and then also cameras and surveillance equipment. Kind of why you want to do business with B&H. They're number one in their marketplace for photo and video. They've got very dedicated account reps. They ship product same day. If your orders are entered by 4 o'clock, that it'll ship that same day. If it's in stock, if it's not in stock, it'll ship in 2 to 3 business days after that. They've got a 600,000 square foot warehouse in New Jersey where they keep most of these products in stock, and they really focus on making sure that they can turn around the products in a very timely fashion, and they tend to be a price leader in those areas. Why us? We are the local rep, as Charlotte mentioned. We are an MBE, DBE company. We're located in Wheaton, Illinois. We have 2 offices in the west side, on the west side and the south side of Chicago, where we have warehousing capabilities, so we can have local stock here as well. We are local representatives here for B&H so that we can also service the customer. So they're in New York, and so having a local rep here to help facilitate orders, quotations, even some problem solving, some technical support. We're here to help do that, and also to help turnkey some projects. Currently, most of their business is done online with the e-commerce site. I believe that we're currently working on being in the iBuy system, which would allow you guys to use an online portal. We're still waiting for that portal to get up and running. We've been promised that that should happen very, very early next year. But right now, we're currently taking orders the old-fashioned way with a purchase order, and we do have the ability to take some P cards. So what we're asking the different departments to do in the purchasing offices is to send us in a shopping cart request so that we can turn around those quotes quickly for you. So in that shopping cart request, I think I have a diagram of that. Okay, there it is. Yeah, I'll have Deepo walk you through this.
So every person in this room deals with computers or some type of printer on a daily basis. So what this will allow you to do is if you need to purchase additional computers, printers, drones, any electronics, this is how you're going to do the process. It's like an Amazon experience, right? Because everyone's moving towards an e-commerce platform where you can click, 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 and buy. Well, you can click, 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 and send the quote to us for now. So you're gonna do one thing. You're gonna go to bnh.com. When you go to bnh.com, you're gonna go to the various products, whether it's a camera that you're looking for, or a printer, or a computer, or even accessories, tripods, projectors, screens, etc. They have various different product groups up at the top. You're going to click on that specific product. Click it, add to cart. And if you're like me, an Amazon shopper who loves to share her cart with her husband because I buy too much, you can then go to your cart on the top right-hand side of that screen, and then you can share your items in your cart with us. So ERM, Rod, and myself, Deepo Pater, we are your local reps. We're on campus once a week. We're always on campus. We'll be here back on Tuesday. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. We'll be sticking around after the presentation, and all of our contact information is here. So once you get your cart all ready, whether it's 1 item, 15 items, 30 items, I don't even know what items, call Deepo or Rod, you can share that cart with us, and then we'll send you a quote. This is the process for the time being until we get an automated process, and we're an iBuy, and everything then will just be click, 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 buy. For now, you'll send us the quote or your cart list. We'll send you a quote back and then send over a purchase order if everything is to your liking. Now, B&H, why B&H? One of the things I do want to point out is B&H kind of owns this market share. So go back to your departments, and I highly encourage you to have this conversation with whoever does any of your electronic purchasing. Do you know who B&H is? And I'm gonna bet they probably do. If they buy electronics on a daily basis, on a regular basis, they know who B&H is. So they're a reputable company with local representatives here to help you. So here's our contact information. Before you all leave, we're going to be standing right out here to collect those questionnaires. We'd love to come and meet with you, say hello to your team, educate you a little bit more. And remember, 100% of this spend will be diversity spend for the campus. Thank you so much for your time.
Questions?
I'll be collecting the questionnaires, please.
All right, thanks. I know we're out of time. I'm going to be real quick. One more 30-second update from Jeff Weaver in Property Accounting, and that's that the Fab Web and Biennial Inventory applications will be unavailable Tuesday and Wednesday, November 19th and 20th, related to the bulk disposal of records in Banner associated with the equipment threshold changes. And retagging of those items is not required to be completed until your unit's next scheduled biennial inventory cycle and certification date. So thanks, everybody. Good to see everybody, and have a good rest of your day.